A question that often comes up with the IDI is, what's the so what of motivation? With behavior, there's a clear path to take action. What's the action you recommend people taking when you know their motivation? It's a great question, and I have a few responses to it. The first one is an important one, and it's that there's something that is wonderful about the IDI and motivation in that there is freedom from taking direct action, right? And what I mean by that is, people are often, they look at their IDI or they look at their motivational profile and they want to know, well, how can I go about changing this, right? And that's not what it's about. You can't take an active role in changing your motivations. You can't you can't wake up tomorrow morning and say, I'm going to be more motivated by this. It doesn't even make sense, kind of coming out of my mouth. And there's freedom in that. Very often, any assessment out there that you pick up, it's this is what you're doing and this is what you need to change. And it's almost like, people can get a little apprehensive about assessment because of it. And I will tell you, once people understand the IDI and that there is freedom from looking at it in a way where I need to take action, it creates a sense of relief and it creates a sense of openness that is very valuable in terms of them learning and taking things away from the IDI. So that is really important to me. The second thing here is there is value in the awareness of where you are unique. And where you might be seeing things in a way that not a lot of other people do, right? So this comes with very high scores or very low scores in the IDI, and having that awareness, having that knowledge that if I were to put you into a room with 100 people, and you're hanging out on the right-hand side, and everyone else is to the left of you, right? In terms of how they see the world, in terms of this particular motivation. Is very valuable because it allows you to take a step back and say, hold on, remember, you're seeing this in a way that not a lot of other people do. What questions do you need to ask yourself to potentially to calibrate, right? Thirdly, for me here is this ability to potentially reflect or think more objectively about what has happened, what's going on, or potentially what's going to happen, right? So I talk about the IDI in relation to sort of a past, present, and future. I'll talk about the present quickly here. The present is very challenging. It's very hard to know your IDI profile and try to, in the moment, calibrate your reactions or your behaviors based upon your profile. It's sort of, you'd be a magician in some way if you could do it. But the past and the future are really, I think, important here in terms of being able to think about it objectively. And what I mean by that is reflecting on what happened last week, last month, yesterday, and thinking about, okay, the story I'm telling myself is colored by my IDI profile. How can I think about this more objectively to determine what happened and maybe how I should respond to it or how I should be thinking or feeling about it? And then in terms of the future, think about, okay, I'm going into this meeting tomorrow, or I know this thing is happening next week. And very often I end up in this place when I'm in this meeting or whatever it is that might be happening. How do you objectively think about how you should be approaching whatever it is that you're thinking about? And how can you potentially calibrate yourself and your behaviors and how it is what your expectations are and what you should be reacting to? And also, what do you need to keep in your consciousness as you go into the thing that you're doing? And so those are a few things that I think about in terms of taking action with the IDI. That being said, it's not it's not a direct correlation. The last thing I'll say here is you also can make a connection between the IDI and behavior, right? If you have a high IDI score or a low IDI score, what's the correlation between the behavior? What's the implication for the behavior that may or may not happen? And then use your language around behavior from a developmental point of view to help the individual, right? Well, because of this motivation, you might not demonstrate this behavior with a lot of frequency, right? It might be a little uncomfortable for you. Why don't you try these set of things, right? So there's the big connection for me between the IDI and the LEA, which is, again, MRG's leadership behavioral assessment.